I think sometimes there's an inclination a lot of people might have to say, oh, well, another language, that's cool, neat, or pretty, another pretty bird singing in the forest. And it would be nice to hear all the birds, but really, what's the value? How's it going to get you a job? Those kind of questions. And so a couple of things. First of all, something doesn't have to have economic value to have value. I think you can see this, and this is beyond even the Ojibwe experience. We have 7,000 languages spoken on planet Earth. 2,500 are spoken only by elders. So in the likely lifetime of most of the people watching this show, we're going to see a whole bunch of languages go extinct. They're even worried about a language like Swedish, which is the official language for a whole country. If you publish a book in Swedish, they'll put a copy in every library in the country. And they're worried about where do they end up a few hundred years from now, because everybody in Sweden speaks English. It's becoming this is ironic to say, lingua franca of business, even in Sweden, and it creates big challenges. And I think you can see this tension. I've never met an elder from any group who doesn't shake his or her head and go, kids these days. Because there's this tension about cultural change and continuity. Like, we want some changes, innovations in healthcare, better longevity, standard of living. We might have to make changes to make that happen. But at the same time, you can just see it seeps into American politics and around the world, this fear that things are changing too fast. The world that I know is disappearing, that I don't know if my kids are going to have a better future or know who they are, and that everything's kind of getting smothered by globalization, colonization, all these sorts of things. So among the values for revitalizing a language, it does many things. Imagine the experience for people who are not from Northern Europe. And you're swimming in the sea of someone else's culture. And the only way that you can succeed is to be good at that. And you send your kids to school, and they're never going to hear about their ancestors, who also helped make this world a wonderful, beautiful place. And it kind of has you at odds with even things that could or should be helpful to and supportive of them. And so if we can shift education to be an opportunity for everybody to learn about themselves, as well as the rest of the world, then it does something positive for them, and it doesn't have them at war with themselves or the rest of the world. In addition to that, the effort for language revitalization pulls community together. And I think as human beings, we are hardwired to need connection, community, belonging, love. You can find this in many different ways. Honestly, even a sports team is a community of sorts in and of itself. But this is a form of community that's actually quite healthy. It supports tribal sovereignty. It does so many things. I'm going to share a brief story. A few years ago, this is a couple years before the pandemic, I was brought to a meeting in Mille Lacs. And for those who don't know, Mille Lacs in central Minnesota, just a couple hours away from here, has been a really financially successful tribe. And so, for starters, they saved half of their money from the first dollar that came through from a casino. So now their endowment produces more money than casinos. They have a diversified business plan. They said, why are we sending all our money to a non-native bank? They bought the bank and they run a bank. They have a diversified business plan, operate businesses even in the Twin Cities. But then how they spent their money is really interesting too. They put a fluent speaking elder in each classroom in the tribal school. They created an immersion nest. They put a beautiful ceremonial hall in each of their communities for their ceremonial drums. And I was brought to this meeting and they said, well, we have some money and we'd really like to think about workforce development. But instead of just training everybody to be a great gas station attendant, we do need gas station attendants too, but we want to train them for the jobs we really need. Jobs in language revitalization, curriculum development, all kinds of things. And we'd like to think more expansively about this. So I said, at that time they'd done a language survey and they had identified 25 remaining fluent speakers of Ojibwe in their community, and they were all over 70.
Wow.
I said, it's not likely that they're all going to go to college, get degrees, come back and run a new program. You're going to have to do something different. So I said, how about this? Let's develop Rosetta Stone, which is a language learning tool, kind of like Duolingo or Babbel, so it can work off of a computer or an app on a phone. Let's also develop a literacy program where we can develop books in the Ojibwe language that can feed this effort, so we can do literacy in our language with your speakers. And I was pitching all these ideas, and they looked at each other and they said, well, let's do all of it. And so we got to work doing all of it. And I mean, there's more to say about even the nature of the contract and the details and copyrights. We had to sort through all kinds of things. I've done a lot of publishing work, so I convinced the Minnesota Historical Society to publish the books in Ojibwe, even though no one on their staff could read them, which is a pretty interesting vote of confidence in the effort. The work is really incredible. So as we had to teach elders how to work through the pandemic by sending a grandchild and a computer to everyone's home. And sometimes there were all kinds of hilarious stories too about trying to, acculturate them to computer work. We had 6 of those fluent speakers passed away. That was 20% of their fluent speakers during the pandemic. When we finally came out of it and could safely celebrate the books and the release of the new Rosetta Stone work and things like that, Joe Naquinabe is one of the spiritual leaders there. He had lost a brother and a sister to COVID. We asked him to speak, and he kind of floored me. He said, we've been through a lot. We've been through a lot the past few years. We've been through a lot the past few 100 years. But I have to say, seeing all of these young people coming around, seeing what we've been able to build, knowing that our elders will be teaching people our language for hundreds of years to come, I have to say that this has been the happiest time of my life. And then the Mille Lacs Band of Ojibwe can turn around and say, we hire many, many people to work for our tribe, native and non-native. We expect everybody who works here to demonstrate this level of competency in our tribal language. Here's the tool to do it. The assessments are built right in. You have 1 year from date of hire. Welcome to our sovereign nation. And so language revitalization is not just a bird in the forest. It's sovereignty, it's economic vitality, it's community cohesion. And on a Saturday night, when a lot of young people of any group might be looking for fun, their ceremonial dance halls are full of hundreds of people who are eating healthy food, moving to the music, from babies to elders, in their language and culture, forging community, and it's genuinely healthy.